Ooh.
And astonishing goal. That's the way to do it. Herrera. Ibrahimovic! With 3.5 minutes to play. Now Di Maria wants it back, gets it back. Fantastic.
That's the luck of the bounce off Gaston Ramirez. Top try! What a day this is turning out to be for Manchester United.
Mason Greenwood hits the spot.
In he goes towards Muriel. What a save, David De Gea. Brilliant save.
Dan James. Dream debut. Daniel James.
Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we will be looking at the top 10 most expensive transfers in the 2019-20 windows and be ranking their season so far out of 10. With me today, I've got a guest from the United Link. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Akash and I run a Twitter page called the United Link where I discuss European football and transfers. And thank you for having me on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you. So we'll just get straight into it. We're going to be ranking the top 10 most expensive transfers in the Premier League this season. And we'll start with the 10th most expensive transfer, Joelinton from Hoffenheim to Newcastle for a fee of £40 million. And it was Newcastle's record signing. And, strikers for Newcastle have struggled in recent years with Joselu and Dwight Gale both not nailing down the first team position, and Rondon and Perez both moving out to greener pastures, it would seem, as Benitez left. And so Newcastle were in a bit of trouble. So they signed Joelinton hoping that he would give them the goals they needed, and he hasn't. He's only scored 3 goals and created 4 assists in 34 appearances in all competitions and only 1 Premier League goal. He'd been slammed by Alan Shearer for not doing enough as a target man, not doing enough off the ball. And we should just, it seems kind of horrible to slam players like this, but what's your opinion on him?
With regards to transfers with strikers, there's a lot of added pressure immediately when they come in because they're expected to score goals immediately. So especially a player like Joelinton, who's coming from Hoffenheim, and he for a very high fee of around 40 million. So immediately when he's come in, he's expected to score goals. And I think players who come from the leagues outside England, they should be given time and space to, get to know the league, and they should be given some time to, learn how the game is played in England. And it's an extremely different style of play in England. So I would say that his stats have really not helped his image and his reputation. As you know, like you rightly said, Alan Shearer has attacked him. I don't think that's fair. I think he should be given another season to show that he's capable of leading the lineup. And it's interesting that we discussed this transfer because from the Newcastle, the takeover is taking place. And we can see that they're being linked to some really big names. Recently, I read somewhere that Ighalo is being looked by Newcastle if his move to Manchester United doesn't happen, if his loan is not made permanent there. So it's a very interesting time for Newcastle fans and their signings. So it's obviously an added pressure for Joelinton if he doesn't perform next season. I think they could probably maybe even just sell the player, because they would, if they're making a squad which is going to compete for European places. They need a player who's consistent, and I don't think he's consistent enough this season. His stats don't really, it's not good viewing. When you look at just a goal this season and probably just 2 assists, he's done better in the cups. He started 5 games in the cups and he's scored 2 goals, given 2 assists. So he's shown his signs of potential in phases. but I don't think it's good showing for him. So he needs to step up most definitely. I think it's added pressure for Newcastle because it's he if he doesn't perform, he'll be labelled as a failure, and a lot of money has been invested in this signing for him to probably come and try to lift the club again. So it's with regards to Newcastle, there's so much going on that I think this his poor form has obviously not been focused upon. There's not much line. He's not in the limelight right now. But when he is, I think it's going to be tough for him. So he needs to definitely step up and show his real potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is clear that some players do need more time when they to adjust to the Premier League. I mean, we could tell from Fred this season that he's looked like a completely different player. Even Victor Lindelof needed another season, probably an extra 2 months on the top of that.
When we speak about Lindelof, it's kind of a dicey situation with him as well, because I think United looking at another defender to get in more depth. But if Lindelof doesn't step up, I think if Bailly can improve his injury record, then he could be replaced as well. So I think Lindelof also needs to step up his game, like you mentioned.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, a lot of investment's been put into Joelinton, and the fans and the staff will want him to succeed. They don't want this money to be a waste, because obviously, even though they are getting a huge influx of cash, wasted money is still wasted money. So they do want him to do well. But at the moment, I think it is fair to say he hasn't done as well as they expected. So what rating would you give him so far?
I think a goal a season warrants for maybe a 4 out of 10. I think with the reason why I'm giving him a 4 is because he's actually not done well in the league at all, but he's somehow managed to help his team in the cups. So trying to give him some kind of credit where it's due, but it's not much. And I think for 40 million, you certainly need to do more. And I think it's extremely important that he steps up next season. Otherwise, he could just be replaced. It's and be sold. And his value has literally decreased by 20 million. So I think it's extremely important for him to step up next season so that he can show that he has great potential. And I think if he has aspirations for making the Brazilian team as well. So if he can do that, then that'll be fantastic for his future.
Absolutely, yes. I totally agree with everything you said there. I do think he does need time. I do think he'll be the first person to admit his season wasn't the best, and maybe he just needs that extra season to see if he can adjust. And then I guess it's sort of a make it or break it season then, because otherwise they're going to just splash out the cash with the money they should get from this takeover.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move on to our next player on the list, and that is Leicester City's Youri Tielemans, who moved in the summer for a fee of £40.5 million from AS Monaco. And Tielemans just fits straight back into the Leicester squad. He was loaned to Leicester last January, and they made it a permanent deal. He snubbed Manchester United, which makes a big statement about how much he enjoyed working under Brendan Rodgers and at Leicester City. He controlled the tempo of games, and in 34 appearances, he has 5 goals and 7 assists from a deeper midfield position, allowing Maddison to go forward a bit more. But would you say it was £40 million well spent?
I think it's a brilliant deal, to be very honest with you. I was extremely upset when United wanted a midfielder and Youri Tielemans was linked with United now, and I was thinking that he could do really well in a team like Manchester United because of his credentials and because of his reputation. I think he's done extremely well with all the clubs that he's played. He's played with Anderlecht. He's played with Monaco. He has a great record in his previous clubs, and I think the move to Leicester really showed us his potential and showed us how well he can do in the Premier League and how well suited it is to his style of play. He scored, I think, 3 goals this season and 5 assists. I think it's a good start. stats don't always show the paint the real picture, especially with midfielders, because they don't really show the actual impact the signing has always. So with regards to Yuri Tillman, I think he's had some great performances this season. I think he adds a great balance in the midfield for Leicester, and I think if Leicester can invest in players like him, they can, generally contend for the top four and maybe one day for the league again. I think that might not happen real soon, but Leicester can always be contending for your European places. And I think if they continue to make signings like Tillmans, then it's brilliant. I'm a huge fan of him personally, and I've watched him play in his previous clubs, and I just feel that this player has a great ceiling in terms of his potential. And if he can really work with good managers and good players, I think if you surround him with quality, he will always step up. And I think he more than anything, he participates in Leicester's goal scoring activities a lot. I think he has a great impact on the team. He's an impact signing, like how we look at Bruno Fernandes with Manchester United. I think it's a similar impact in terms of his presence in the midfield. And when he's on the pitch, he's going to make a difference. So I think it's a fantastic signing for Leicester. And if he can stay at the club for a good amount of time, I think Leicester fans will most likely be extremely happy with the signing that has been made by the club.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he, like you said, stats don't always show what his impact has done. He's obviously he gets the ball in a deep position and he plays it forward and he plays it quickly, like how we always valued Michael Carrick. And he's not one to shy away from a tackle either. He's quite a good defensive player, and he then gets the ball forward, and then it allows the attacking players that Leicester have, like Vardy and Maddison and Barnes, to get forward further and actually then create the goals. So I do think actually his stats kind of, because you don't see second assists as much, and he has a lot of those for Leicester. And I remember watching him when United were playing Anderlecht in the Europa League and Mourinho, and him and Dendoncker were running the show at times. And obviously,
it's very interesting that they moved to the Premier League in a similar time phrase, Dendoncker and Tillman. So both of these players have been impact signings for their teams. If you look at Wolves, having a player like Dendoncker not only adds depth, but it also adds steel to the midfield. It also brings strength to the midfield. These players have great presence in midfield, so they don't take time to adjust and to the Premier League. They have great presence of mind. They have their technical ability is fantastic. So I think these two players in particular, like you mentioned, they are extremely good midfielders. And since they are extremely young, I think he's 23 years old, so he has a long way to go. But I think he's a promising talent. Let's hope for the best for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So what rating would you give Yuri Tielemans then for this season?
With the stats that he has and with the performances that he's put in, I think a 7 on 10 would be a fair rating for his season. I think there's still a long way to go in this season, and there's still games to be played. But let's see how that pans out. But for the moment, I think a 7 on 10 would be a fair rating, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah. And then we'll move straight on to the next player. Mateo Kovacic moved from Real Madrid to Chelsea this summer for a fee of £40.5 million as well. And Chelsea managed to avoid the transfer ban with the option to buy clause in his loan deal from last year. And while last year he was sort of a fringe player coming on for Ross Barkley most of the time, or coming off for Ross Barkley in the other side. He's then made 37 appearances for Chelsea this season, and while his stats, again, don't show his full impact of 2 goals and 3 assists in those appearances in all competitions, he has replaced the energy that's missing from Kante's injury, and he's had a lot of dynamism in that midfield for Chelsea, where Jorginho's not the fastest, and then it allows Kovacic to recover the ball and play it forward for Mason Mount, and the other attacking players Chelsea have in a similar way that Tielemans has. So would you say Kovacic's impact has been similar or worse to Tielemans?
When you look at Kovacic, I think his time at Madrid wasn't exactly, I think, how he thought it would be, because when Real Madrid decided to send him out on loan and then finally made his deal permanent, it just showed that they have a tendency to require players who have a extremely good image for one season in the media, then they go for that player, and then that player just sits on the bench and doesn't realize his full potential. I think a similar example would be Jovic. We didn't see much of him at Madrid, but everyone spoke extremely highly of him. So when you look at such transfers, I think his move to Chelsea really sparked his flair to do well and realize his full potential this season. I've followed him closely, and when I speak to Chelsea fans, especially like Alex Goldberg, who speaks very highly of him, and I agree with him and with the kind of impact that he's had at Chelsea. I think he's been one of the best midfielders in Europe this season, from a personal point of view. And when I see his game, it's extremely interesting because the kind of steel that he adds to the midfield and the kind of recoveries that he does, and the drive that he adds to the midfield, I think that has really helped Chelsea this season in places where other players have failed to step up. I think he's had that sense of consistency in him. Obviously, when you look at a midfield of Jorginho and Kovacic and Kante and other young academy players coming around, I think he has been a good signing for Chelsea. Just today, when we read reports of Jorginho leaving for possibly Pjanic coming in from Juventus, so it's an extremely interesting development for Chelsea's midfield. I think with Pjanic and Kovacic coming in, they'll have a lot of ability in terms of their technical ability. In terms of when you compare his season to a Tielemans, I think he like I said, stats don't always show you the real impact that a player has on the team. So in terms of stats, I think Tielemans has been better, but in terms of turning up for the team, I think Kovacic wins that round for me. So I think overall, I think he's had a very good season. I think he has great potential. He's a fantastic signing if he can continue to put in more performances like he has on previous occasions. And I think you know his ability, because if he's played for clubs like Real Madrid, you know that they don't falter in terms of their recruitment. And even at his time at Inter, I think I was a really big fan of his. So I think he's been a good signing for Chelsea. I was shocked when he came to Chelsea initially, but I think they've done some good business with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to say that when it comes to Chelsea's signings of late, quite a lot of them have been pretty poor and didn't work. You think about Alvaro Morata and Gonzalo Higuain, even looking like David Luiz sort of only lasted a couple seasons before he was shipped off.
Yeah, and don't forget Falcao.
Oh, of course, never forget Falcao. And even Baba Rahman, who was supposed to be supposed to replace Ashley Cole, apparently just disappeared. Don't even know where he is right now.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting when you bring him up, because I think when Mourinho wanted to sign someone like him, he thought that he was the one for the future. But when you see Mourinho's recruitments, even for in his last season at Manchester United, it shows that he doesn't always have the influence in bringing signings in. And when you look at Fred being discussed under Mourinho, when I read reports about how Mourinho brings his transfers in, he never really wanted Fred to come in. And I think when we read such reports, because the transfer committee that is already in place has always mentioned top players and who should be brought in. But Mourinho didn't always have the final say as to who would be brought in. So even when you look at Mourinho's time at Chelsea at his second spell, there have always been with regards to transfers. He has always had his up and down. So sometimes he gets it absolutely spot on, but sometimes it's a big hit and miss. So like you brought up Breman, that just reminded me of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you think about Mourinho signings. I mean, obviously Fred and Alexis Sanchez. I think they were more Ed Woodward signings to keep them away from going to Manchester City, really, because I believe that was the plan, that they were both supposed to go to Man City, and then Ed Woodward offered more money, both transfers and wages, and they accepted, and they joined the team, and that shows kind of what happens really when because Fred didn't work straight away. He didn't work in Mourinho's system. He's managed to slowly pay back his £60 million fee under Solskjaer this season, but it's taken a long time, and Sanchez never really got going. And that's still a mystery to me, really, how he managed to, fall so badly and fall so far. But
and he's like he's likely to come back to the club. So we need to find a way to either get rid of him by, he's from what I've heard, from what I've read, I think he still has an offer from his home country, Chile. But I don't think so he'll take it up, because he's on extremely high wages at Manchester United, and to forgo those wages, especially during these pandemic times, like, with this pandemic going on, I don't think he'll be willing to leave United. So United do need to find ways to sort of involve him. If he's going to stay, might as well get the best out of him. So United do need to find ways of getting the best out of him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he will probably be a bit part player if he does stay, and if he does go, I mean, it's a win-win, because then we don't have that wages, and it means that he actually gets first team football, which he wants. So hopefully, the best.
Probably involve him in the cup games,
Yeah, he could. I mean, in the if there are problems with the Igalo deal, he could be that sub striker that comes on every now and again to make a difference, because he would offer something slightly different, and he does still have the quality that he showed at Barca and Arsenal as well. So we'll have to see how that goes, but it does look like he will be staying next season.
Let's hope for the best for him. That's all I'll say.
Absolutely, yeah. And then before we go to the Kovacic's rating, just one thing you mentioned about Mourinho's influence, and actually it's just more about Ed Woodward's kind of power in transfer deals. I mean, so far he's had a lot of influence, but over the last few weeks it's been reported that he will no longer be making decisions as to which players that United want, and instead he will be still making the deals, but he has no say in which transfers to go for. That's a massive step forward, isn't it?
I think when Sir Alex was there at Manchester United, I think a lot of what he said and did was the final say, because it was Sir Alex. And when United decided to go ahead with Moyes after Sir Alex decided to retire, they didn't have a plan with regards to how they were going to change their transfer strategy. If you remember the first summer we had after Sir Alex left, we tried to get in top players like Fabregas. We made attempts to sign Bale, even though he really wanted to go to Madrid. So when you look at United's strategy, they were never really ready for Sir Alex to leave. And when the transfer strategy was not decided, that's when the debacles started to happen. That's where a lot of our signings, who were actually brought in, players who were brought in, they didn't do well. I think a lot of players from the Louis van Gaal era are a testament to Ed Woodward's failure in order to address the transfer issues. So you can see the likes of Morgan Schneiderlin, Memphis Depay, even Basti coming in, but they never really got off. They never really got running. So I think now that has changed. A lot has been changed. United has, I think, they've invested a lot of money into the scouting system. I think United have uh, made attempts to, change the transfer strategy. They've decided not to always go for the big names. I think Daniel James coming in is a perfect example for, probably good scouting. I think he's done decently well with regards to his from what was expected of him. I think majority of us expected him to just come off the bench and be a impact player from the
Yep.
bench, but he started majority of the games for United. So you can just see that United have decided to change their transfer strategy. They have decided to. I think there's a transfer committee in place now, which is headed by I think a lot of scouts. I think Marcel Bout is one of them.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I think it's extremely important that we decide to change our transfer strategy, and I think we're slowly but surely getting there. I think majority of the signings that we've had this season have been good viewing, and they've had a good impact. So when you look at Harry Maguire, when you look at Bruno Fernandes, when you look at a lot of players who have been brought in, they've had a good impact, especially like the likes of Van Bissaka, who's become an instant fan favorite. I think so. It's extremely important that we continue this and we continue to be on the right track, and hopefully we will sort our signings out and probably start contending for the title soon.
Absolutely, yeah. It looks like a massive step in the right direction, and obviously, I'm pretty sure it's fair to say all the signings that Solskjaer has made so far have been successful to a certain degree. We'll obviously go through a few of them on our list later on, but for now, we'll just finish up with Mateo Kovacic's rating. Would you say it's higher or lower than Yuri Tielemans?
I'd say I'll just give him a little more credit than Tielemans, so I'll say probably an 8 on 10 would be a fair rating. I think he's had a very good season.
Thank you very much. And yeah, now we'll be talking about one of those Solskjaer signings, Bruno Fernandes, brought in January for £46 million from Sporting Lisbon, and was an instant hero at Manchester United, and he got a man of the match performance in his first 4 games, if I'm not mistaken. He set up the second goal against Chelsea. He scored his first goal against Watford and got another assist in that game, and starred for United against Club Brugge and against LASK, and performed an excellent chip in the Manchester derby. He just became an instant success. He won the February Player of the Month for the Premier League, and 3 goals and 4 assists in 9 appearances. Even without the stats, he just changed the whole dynamic of the club. It's probably one of the best signings of the season. Would you not agree?
Mate, when I started covering this transfer story, the previous summer. So when we were linked with him, there was always this doubt that would Bruno Fernandes have a similar impact to, say, probably other Portuguese players, like when you often say Bernardo Silva. Would he have a similar impact, or would he fail, or would he not be successful in England? Because it's majority of the fans always have this opinion that just because players play in Portugal, they have this and it's extremely easy for them to increase their stats, and majority of the goals come from penalties, and there are several accusations. So when I was covering this transfer story, majority of the people wanted him at the club because of his performances in Portugal, especially for Lisbon. So when you look at this player, he's an absolute machine. He has fantastic ability. I think he has a great presence of mind. And I think when everyone linked Bruno Fernandes to Manchester United, I think Ole came and said that, what, we can't sign every player that we're being linked to. So I think that was the first time that United actually were frustrated because I think they actually tried to negotiate for him that summer, but the transfer fee was just simply too high for him. So they decided to take things easy, decided to go for him in January. There were reports which came out in early January, which stated that, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came and scouted him for games in Lisbon. And that's when the buzz started to, finally come around that, United are actually extremely interested in Bruno Fernandes. And I think when you watch Bruno Fernandes play, I agree with Ole when he says that he's always a step ahead. He'll always look for that first pass to the final third. He'll always have that creative spark in him. And I think if United manage to keep Pogba, and if we can formulate a successful midfield partnership between Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, I think that's one of the best midfields in Europe, if I'm not wrong, based on just pure ability. And when you just look at Bruno Fernandes' impact on Manchester United, I think he's become one of the most loved players at the club. Fans have already made his chance, and I think he's been widely accepted by the players, by the fans, and surprisingly also by the English media. The English media also speak extremely highly of him. I think they've when United are involved, especially with regards to transfers, everyone will always focus on the transfer fee, and always there'll always be a negative connotation attached to the player. But with regards to Bruno Fernandes, I think everyone has been extremely, positive with regards to his signing. And I think United have got a player who can really change things for them and for their future. I would say he has a fantastic ability, technical ability, and I think that assist against Manchester City to Martial just shows his presence of mind and his ability to change things for United. So I think he's been a powerhouse for United. I think that would be the perfect phrase for him.
Yeah, you can really see the impact he's made immediately. You could see just from the first game he played against Wolves, and even though United didn't score, he was by far the best player on that pitch. And just everything he did was it was smooth, it was crisp, and he didn't have a lot of time to train. I think he only had maybe a couple of days, and even then he seemed pretty much on par with any other player there. He didn't look rusty at all. He looked very sharp. He looked like he was born to play there, really.
A lot of midfielders who play in Italy. I think, if you're aware, he's played for a lot of Italian clubs. I think Sampdoria and I think Udinese being just a couple of these clubs. So I think if his game well and truly developed in Italy, I think he became the midfielder that he is today because of his time in Italy. And when he came to Sporting, I think in the 17-18 season, I think that's where I think even with his time in the national team, I think Cristiano speaks very highly of him. So I think we have a good player on our hands, and one for the long term, hopefully.
Yeah, I do think he's got a long future at Manchester United. I think he just knits all the players together so well, and it will be exciting to see when all the players are back, because it looks like Pogba and Rashford will both be fit for when the season resumes, should it resume on the 12th of June. So how would you rank Bruno Fernandes' season so far, albeit only 9 games in all competitions?
Yeah, so I think to just base this ranking towards these 9 games, like, I think it would be fair to say that he's been a 9 on 10 for me. I think he's been a fantastic player, but it's unfair to judge him just based on these 9 games. I think we can get a completely, a whole picture when we see the season ending. But so far, as things stand, I think a 9 on 10 is a very good rating for him.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's really been stunning, and it's shown in the performances and the accolades. We'll go on to number 5. Another Manchester United player in Aaron Wan-Bissaka moved from Crystal Palace in the summer for a fee of £50 million, and immediately displaced Ashley Young and the leaving Antonio Valencia at right back and made that position his own. He came straight into the starting 11 and outshone everyone in his defensive abilities. He has made 145 recoveries this season and 99 tackles. He's got a 67% tackle ratio, which is outstanding for a defender making that many amount of tackles. And he's probably the best defensive right back in the world, definitely in the league, potentially in the world, and is improving his attacking game quite a lot, but that is his weak point in his game. But obviously he is improving. He has got 2 assists already this season, crucial ones against Newcastle and Chelsea. Although his attacking abilities are limited, would you say that he is still a successful signing?
I'd say he's been one of the best signings United have made in the recent past. I'll tell you why. Because I think United, when they were actually scouting him, I think when United were actually going for him and decided to pay that huge fee, I think not many people protested to that, because everyone who had seen him at Palace knew that this player was ready to play at the highest level. And when I look at him and his defensive record, I think that's exactly what a defender is supposed to do, isn't he? Like he might struggle in the department when it comes to assist or attacking play, but we need to honestly realize that our right, the midfield area and the right wing area has always been lacking ever since Ronaldo has left. So when you look at Ronaldo, when you look at players who have come and replaced him, like say Valencia, or they've not exactly been players who have contributed in the attacking style of play in terms of big numbers. So I think now is the perfect time to get in a winger who complements his style of play. So I think that's one of the major reasons why United are being linked to Jadon Sancho, is because we'll finally bring in a player who complements Wan-Bissaka and who will actually make a difference. So I think we need to strengthen our the right wing side, and it's extremely important for us to support Wan-Bissaka, because I think probably many would say he's been our player of the season. And I wouldn't disagree. I personally felt it was Fred, but majority who I've spoken to often feel that it's Wan-Bissaka who should be the player of the season. And it's tough to argue against that, because I think he's been one player who has always been consistent. And consistency is what United lack. United have been crying out loud for a proper right back. So it's extremely important that we support Wan-Bissaka, and I think he has been a great signing for us. I'd say probably one of the best signings we've made in the recent past.
Truly, yeah. I mean, it's essentially that we needed a right back last season, and we tried to get in a youth player like Diogo Dalot to replace Valencia when he does eventually leave. But Valencia's form dropped so far off a cliff, and Dalot wasn't ready to step up to the first team regular position. So it was crucial that we needed to get a right back, and Wan-Bissaka was the name that was being floated around basically since March. So it was a fantastic piece of business, and although it did take a bit of time to get the fee sorted, he was the right player to get. With Cancelo being another name that was being wafted around, and obviously it was a good plan that we didn't actually go for him, as we will show later.
City were extremely keen on getting that deal sorted extremely fast, because I think Juventus were getting indications that Cancelo had to move as soon as possible, and they wanted the deal done extremely fast. So when United actually decided to go for a right back, the only reason why Palace were extremely rigid with their stance with regards to the transfer fee was because they felt that they were letting go of a player who had a massive ceiling in terms of potential and who would obviously be a world class player if he can, reach that ceiling. So
Mhm.
I think in terms of transfer fee, I think United did well towards the very end, where we did decide to I think negotiate a good deal. And I think if and when Zaha is sold, I think we have a sell on clause on that as well, so we do get a percentage of that fee as well. So with regards to dealing with Crystal Palace, we do have a tendency to negotiate good deals, and I think we have done well here as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, he does have a lot to improve. Like you said, he's got a massive roof for potential. Massive ceiling for potential even. And it is going to be exciting to see how he develops. But as of now, what rating would you give him for this season?
I'd say 9 on 10 for me, most definitely. I think he's had a very good season, and he needs to improve his attacking ability. To be very honest, he needs to do that. There are certain areas where he can improve, but for most of the time, I think he's had a very good season for United, and I don't have much to complain about because I think he's made just one error this season. If I'm not wrong, it was against Watford, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like, so if he just made that one error, it's fine with me because I think he's been sensational throughout. So we can, we need to support him. So we need to we need to sort out that right side of the team really soon, and I hope it's this summer.
Yeah, and the fact is he's only missed 3 games through injury, and the rest he's managed to stay fit for, which is exceptional for someone who likes to throw their body around like he does. We'll move straight on to Tottenham's record signing, Tanguy Ndombele, who moved from Lyon in the summer. And obviously Manchester United were one of the clubs that was linked with the Frenchman as they were looking for a midfielder, which they never seemed to get in the end. But Spurs signed him under Pochettino, and he's made 27 appearances this season. And although his chance creation tally shows that he doesn't actually create many goals, with 2 goals and 4 assists this season, he has played a lot of games. 6 out of the 8 Champions League games that Tottenham have played, and obviously a lot of time in the Premier League too. However, when Pochettino got sacked, he did struggle for a bit under Jose Mourinho, and Mourinho publicly called him out for not being disobedient, it would seem, being difficult. And Jamie Carragher also commented on his lazy play in the poor draw against Burnley and other matches in which he was underwhelming in. And I was just wondering, do you think that he's one of those players that needs more time, or was he just never right for Tottenham?
When I actually read about this transfer, I was actually shocked that a team like Tottenham would go for a player like Ndombele because I never honestly expected them to get a player of his caliber and his potential. Because, when we speak about Spurs, they don't spend huge in the transfer market. They spend smart. So, I think Eriksen is one of the best examples, and even Son. Like, these are signings which are extremely smart signings, and that happens due to good scouting. So when Spurs decided to spend big on his transfer, I think it was around 60 million euros. So I was thinking that he would be one of the best signings in the world for with regards to Spurs signing him, because he's had such a great time in France, and when he started out with Lyon and then went on loan as well. And then when he came back to Lyon, when he came back from Amiens, I think that's when his potential really, really went up because of his loan spell. And then obviously Lyon went and got him. And I think everyone knows how well he did in France. So when Pochettino got sacked, and not many of us expected Pochettino to get sacked because he's one of the most wanted managers in the world. And if a team go through bad form, I think Ndombele was one of the persons who was actually trying his best. But since he's come from a different league, it does take time to adjust. And some midfielders just click, others don't. And I think Bruno Fernandes, if you compare him to Bruno Fernandes was an instant success. Whereas Ndombele, there are mixed reactions to his performances in England. And when you actually look at Pochettino's attitude towards him and Mourinho's attitude towards him, it's extremely important to understand that Mourinho is a different manager altogether with an extremely difficult personality. And when I say difficult, it is not in a bad way. It is in a way that players who have the ability to take constructive criticism in a good way, they will react to him positively. I think one such instance which comes to mind is the Mesut Ozil instance, which he narrated in his book, where while his time at Madrid, when Mourinho just came in and had a go at him, so players react differently in different situations. At that time, Mesut Ozil didn't realize that it was just a push in the right direction. He got offended by what he said. But later on, when he said, that Mourinho reacts differently to different players. And when Mourinho had a go at Ndombele, I think it was not just in a bad way, but just to get the best out of him, because and what, pure frustration. It's extremely important for us to realize that Ndombele needs another season to go and have a go at Tottenham and get the best out of his ability and be a success in England. Now, there have been reports where we have read that, clubs like Barcelona and, they are being linked to him, and, Ndombele is not happy at Spurs and wants to leave. And these reports do come in because, obviously when Mourinho is your manager, these sort of things this negativity always clouds the club. It happened with United as well. It happened with Mourinho and Pogba as well. And this situation just paints another classic, Mourinho scenario where he's extremely frustrated with the player, not in terms of spite, but in terms of just trying to get the best out of his players. Some players react positively. Some players just don't appreciate him. So it's extremely important for Spurs to handle this situation. It's a very delicate situation. I think the player is unhappy. I do feel that the move to Spurs was not right for him. But now, can Spurs keep him and for another season and try to get the best out of him? It's all up to the player and his agent.
Yeah. It is sort of whether he's willing to fight for his place or he'd rather be more comfortable somewhere else where he's not competing as much. I think players that move from the French league, as we have seen, do take time in general to get to their best form. I mean, we saw it with Lucas Moura. We're seeing it now with Ndombele and Nicola Pepe. One exception, it would seem, is Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who, while he wasn't there for a long time, did so well in that time. It was amazing. But we do see it coming from the French league, which is a whole different kettle of fish, and it's not as aggressive or as competitive or as physical as the Premier League is. And so he will need time, especially in that midfield role, where he is going to be a ball-winning midfielder that, like Tielemans, to win the ball and then play it forward. Tielemans is obviously another one that was a success straight from the French league, but he will need time, and it's up to him whether he wants to fight for it.
You know what? It's extremely interesting because when people accuse him of not being a good player, I completely disagree with that, because I think when it comes to technical ability, he was touted as one of the best midfielders in France, and France has the tendency to get great midfielders from the league. So I think when you actually look at him in terms of his technical ability, I don't see that he's a player who lacks in that. It's just motivation, and I think a lot of it has to do with fitness as well. I think when you brought up the comment that he's just pure lazy, it does come across like that, because if you just jog on the pitch, it's not going to come across well. I think similar accusations were made against Pogba as well, that he just simply jogs on the pitch. He never really pushes and he never really runs and closes down on players. So that I see an extremely similar picture and a similar negative aura that is surrounding around this transfer. And I think it is up to the player to change this perspective. And like you rightly said, it's up to him whether to show that he wants to fight for his place or just go the easy way and probably find a move elsewhere.
Yeah. I believe also Anthony Martial has been accused of being lazy as well, and Moise Keane has also been accused of having attitude problems. And there is this aura of foreign players coming in and not being immediately liked by some fans, some pundits, etc. But not to dwell on that for too long. How would you rate Ndombele's season so far?
I'd say it would be a 5 on 10. Reason being that he's had his fair share of problems, and his his fitness has been a huge issue. And once that's why Mourinho gets extremely frustrated, because he wants players who give in 100% all the time. So when you come across a player like Ndombele not turning up, I think a 5 on 10 would paint his season, I think, in my opinion, in a perfect way. I think he can do much better. He's a player who has great ability, great presence of mind in terms of his footballing ability. So I think he can step up.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think he has, for his potential, he has underwhelmed, and like you said, it is up to him whether he wants to fight it out or leave. So another player who's actually on a similar part of his career is João Cancelo, who obviously moved to Man City for £60 million from Juventus, with Danilo going the other way. And it did seem that he was going to be Kyle Walker's understudy, and his appearance stats have shown that too, as he's only made 24 appearances this season and only 11 in the Premier League, and not really impressed all that much, with links in January suggesting he might actually go back on loan elsewhere. So for a £60 million fullback, you would be expecting a lot more. You would be expecting more game time too, but he's not got either of those. And so what do you think about it? Do you think something's gone wrong, or do you think that he was never really suited for Man City?
Mate, when with regards to City, I think they've spent hundreds of millions on defenders alone, and they especially on their with regards to the right back and the left backs. And I feel that this transfer, when I read it in the news as well, it didn't excite me much, because I had a feeling that things won't work out for him, because I think his game in Italy was his style of play is much more accustomed to the style in Italy than in England. I think the move, when it first came across, it didn't sound right in the first place, and I think what I felt actually came into reality. And I think that when his performances in England were scrutinized, people realized that maybe the transfer fee was not justified in the first place. When you spend so much money on a player, especially 60 million, you expect him to start games, and when you don't start games, it shows that something is wrong. Either you're injured, or either you're just not in the form of your life to start games. And when you look at a Pep Guardiola side, there are a lot of tactics involved, and when you actually look into these tactics, it's extremely important to understand that Pep needs players who can execute his plan to perfection. That's one of the reasons why he's done so well in England, because players do just what he says, and there's a lot of things that go behind the scene. So that is the reason why Pep Guardiola is respected so much as a coach. And when we analyze Cancelo, I think it was more of his status. That's why I think City paid such a huge fee for him. But I think it wasn't the right transfer in the first place. And I think the talks about him going on loan aren't surprising at all. because he needs game time in order to get back to what he does best, and that's playing football. And if he doesn't start games at City, it could well turn out that top European clubs just come for him, and maybe City decide to sell. So it's all depending on the player. I think it was not a good transfer in the first place, but when you think of a potential loan move, it could reignite his potential most definitely.
Yeah, you would have to say that it might be best if he does move away and City look for someone else. Because Walker has actually still done so well. He is still he's old. He's not old enough to be considered worth letting go, because he's only 31 in that sense for a fullback, and he's still got a lot of pace in his game. So there's no point in letting him leave, and there's no point in letting him be second choice. So it might be worth looking for someone a bit younger, for a bit cheaper, with a bit more potential, and a bit more of a bit more comfortable in the Premier League. So we'll have to see how that goes. But for now, how would you rank Cancelo's season?
I would say it would be a 4 on 10. Nothing to be excited about. Not started many games. Not lived up to the hype. So it's really not been a good season for him. I think he could have expected more, and I think the fans expected more. I think City fans would be extremely upset with regards to how things have turned out. But like I said, it's all up to the player to step up and prove to Pep Guardiola that he is ready to start in his team. Once he does that, I think things will turn out fine for him.
Thank you. Yeah. Another Pep signing is number 3, with Rodri moving from Atletico Madrid for a fee of £62.5 million. It was his release clause, as suggested. Atletico would not be wanting to let go of someone they deemed valuable to their side, but the release clause did allow City to spend that money, and it was a lot of money for someone who was essentially going to play backup to Fernandinho. But since Laporte's injury, he actually played far more games than was expected, and has actually racked up about 39 appearances in all competitions this season. 3 goals and 1 assist, although in an anchor position. He has done very well, coming in from Spain and settling in quite nicely to the City side. And although he is still starting many games, it looks like if City do manage to get that centre-back and keep Laporte fit as well, that he will be playing more regularly with Fernandinho set to leave. And it looks like he's going to be there for a long time. And would you say his season so far has actually been as successful as it looks?
Yeah, I think Rodri is, one of the most exciting midfielders in Europe. And when City go, City's recruitment is extremely good with regards to the targets that they identify. And once they identify that target, they make it a point to conclude the deal fast. That's because they have a great recruiting setup. I think that's one of the major reasons that Pep wanted Rodrigo to come in, and his transfer fee was in the region of 60 million, right? Or it's somewhere between 60 to 70 million. So I think he was, say somewhere between 60 to 70 million. So I think his presence in midfield has been extremely good. I think he's sort of that anchor in a team who holds the defensive shape of the team. I think he has amazing ability. I think he's a typical Pep Guardiola player, who just implements the tactics that the manager wants. I think he's had his fair share of good games and certain games where I think he could have done better. But I think he has 3 goals and 1 assist in the league. I think for his transfer fee, he should be doing a little more better. I think that's one of the reasons why maybe City have renewed Fernandinho's contract for another year, if I'm not wrong. They have extended his contract. So,
right, okay.
Yeah, so they have extended his contract. So I think if he can learn from Fernandinho a little more, because I think Fernandinho is on a one of the best players in terms of his ability. Uh, he has he has done his dirty tactics a lot of times. He
Mhm.
a lot of fouls on him. But
Yeah.
I think in terms of his ability, he is good. That's why I think Rodri, if he can learn a little more from Fernandinho and be under his guidance, I think City have a good player on their hands.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Definitely he has been implementing the dirty tactics of tactical fouling. That has very much been a part of City's game this season. And yeah, you're right. He has had his fair share of good games, but has also shown some limitations. Um, Obviously, it would be good to learn from Fernandinho. I'm apologise for not knowing that he had signed a new deal, but
I think it's been recent, but it's not been made. It's they just were discussing this because City, when they were talking about probably Fernandinho leaving,
mhm.
I don't think so. City were actually ready for that because I think they want to give Rodri more time to settle in the league, and I think with City coming in with Rodri and allowing him to settle in. I think extending Fernandinho's contract for another season was a good, a good option on their part.
Yeah, I think it is important to keep someone as important as Fernandinho, especially because he is a leader in that dressing room, and to lose him and David Silva in one season would be hugely detrimental, as well as losing company the season before. But Rodri looks like he will outshine Fernandinho in the next few seasons, and probably make his way straight into the Spanish squad for the Euros and the World Cup in the next few years. So, but for now, what rating would you give him for this season?
I would say a 6 on 10 would be a fair rating for him. He's had his fair share of games where he's done extremely well, but there have been games where people have questioned his ability, and that's where the questions about Fernandinho leaving coming in. And they actually decided to extend Fernandinho's contract on 28th January, as per my knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why they've extended it. That's because I think they want Fernandinho to stick around because he offers a little more consistency than Rodri. So I think City have a good player on their hands with regards to Rodri. I think he's extremely young as well, so he has a long way to go. I think this rating is a fair estimate of his season.
Yeah, thank you. I do agree. I think he has got more to show, but what he has shown so far has shown a fairly decent effort at City. What we can't really say that for the next person on this list, who is Nicolas Pepe, who moved for £72 million from Nice to Arsenal. Sorry, not from Nice. Moved from Lille to Arsenal for
Yeah.
a record fee of £72 million, and he was expected to revolutionise Arsenal's front three with Lacazette up front, Pepe on the right, and Aubameyang on the left. And it wasn't really quite the case, really, because while he did get a couple goals in the Europa League in October, he didn't score from open play until December in a 3-1 win against West Ham. And he's only got 6 goals and 8 assists, which, while it does sound impressive, in comparison to his 23 goals and 12 assists from the season before, shows a huge decrease. And just his overall play really showed that he lacked a lot of confidence and was even benched at times by both Arteta and Freddie Ljungberg. So what do you think? What do you think about his season as a whole? Do you think it is that idea that Ligue 1 players coming into the Premier League do need an adjustment period, or do you think he was far more underwhelming than we expected?
When Arsenal were linked to Pepe, I was extremely shocked because I did not expect Arsenal to go ahead with such a signing because you need deep pockets for such a signing.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing Arsenal's financial capabilities, they've always portrayed that they're a club who invest only in smart investments and rather free transfers because They often portray that they don't have the financial resources, despite having a billionaire owner and despite having one of the highest season ticket prices in the league. So when Arsenal decided to go ahead with this signing, it was basically a statement to their fans that they are, it was basically a reminder to the fans that they do go for players who have high potential and high value in the market. But when you actually analyze Pepe's performances in the Premier League, it often comes across that he's a fantastic dribbler, and I think he's one of the best dribblers in the league. He's got fantastic ability in terms of beating his man, but his final finish is absolutely shambolic, and I think it's like he builds up the play to such an extent where you're like literally off your seat, and then he finishes like by literally shooting it far from the post, or just yanking it far away. So it's like there are a lot of expectations from him, and I think we have seen phases of his brilliance. Like you rightly mentioned in the Europa League, where he scored 2 sensational free kicks. I think they were to be very fair to Arsenal fans, that was a very good game for him. But most often than not, when you get benched by Leonberg and by Arteta, it's the same. And it's these are signs which show that there is something wrong with his attitude, maybe in terms of his willingness or his commitment to putting 100%. That's why maybe most of the managers have gone ahead and benched him. Arsenal have got more managers than at this season, where it's difficult to analyze the players. It's like which manager has performed well, and which player has actually turned up under a particular manager. So when you look at Arteta, I think he at his time at City, he's been involved with Pep Guardiola in terms of his building his tactical knowledge and his knowledge about the game. So if a manager of his of his ability has come to the conclusion that maybe Pepe is not good enough to start games on a weekly basis, I think that's the region where he needs to improve, especially his shooting, because because I think there have been games where Arsenal have almost lost the game, and Aubameyang has saved them on the cusp of the game ending. So it's like players like Aubameyang, who has literally dragged Arsenal out of difficult situations. Has Pepe done that? No. Has Pepe turned up? No. So these are extremely critical moments for him. I think to be fair to him, he was extremely good in France. I think when United were linked with him, I was extremely excited about those links because I actually thought we would go for him. But when Arsenal came into the picture and got this done, I thought that, maybe Arsenal are contending for that top 4 spot and are extremely serious about it. But then you go, Arsenal with their managerial problems, and the negativity that surrounds the club, especially that fan channel issue that came up. There are a lot of things that are going off the pitch, and they don't often go right for Arsenal. So and on top of that, Nicolas Pepe dribbling like Messi, but like shooting like like probably a 10 million or a 5 million championship striker. So it's like literally a lot of comparisons have been made, but let's see how things go. I think if given another season, if he can improve on his finishing, he could be a good signing for Arsenal. But as things stand, I think Arsenal fans would be extremely disappointed more than anybody.
Yeah, of course. You do have to say that as the season was going on and Pepe wasn't getting any better, I think there was that whole big surge of Arsenal fans as well as other club fans laughing at the fact that this £72 million signing was just being a massive flop. And then he started to get a little bit better under Arteta, but we haven't seen the brilliance we were expecting, and I do think he will need that extra season. There are kind of signs where he does remind me a bit of Memphis Depay in the sense that he has the ability to get past players, but then sort of seems lost when he in the final third, in the sense of what to actually do with the ball after he's got past the players. And he's gone to a bigger club, and so he's not quite sure whether he's doing the right thing or not. And then if he does the wrong thing, he will get slated for it. So his confidence will then drop. Don't really know where to go. But I do think with another season, he will become one of the more deadly players in the Premier League. So it is important that for Arsenal that he does sort of keep his confidence high, and he does keep improving and making sure that his standards don't drop, really. So on that note, so far it is going to be quite a low mark, I think, for Pepe. What mark are you going to give him?
I'd probably say a 5 on 10 again. I think Arsenal fans would agree on this because they expected a lot more and received far less than was expected. So I think a 5 on 10 would paint a pretty good picture of a season.
Thank you. Yeah, and then we'll be finishing with our last player on the list, of course, our captain Harry Maguire, moving from Leicester for a fee of £85 million, making himself the most expensive centre-back on the planet, surpassing Virgil van Dijk's a few seasons before. Of course, he missed all of pre-season with Manchester United, having a full pre-season with Leicester, but started the first game against Chelsea and was completely dominant in the air, winning pretty much every ball that came at him. And although it took a bit of time to form a partnership with Lindelof, who was struggling himself, they have begun to gel more recently, as Manchester United have racked up the second most clean sheets in Europe, and especially in this 11-game run, they've actually they've kept 8 clean sheets in that time, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, they have done exceptionally well. He did take a while to get his first goal for the club, scoring that screamer against Tranmere Rovers and then a more emphatic header against Chelsea a few days after. And not only that, but when Ashley Young left in January, he was appointed the club captain after wearing the armband a few times when Young was not selected. And it does show what a massive impact he has had as a leadership figure, or a leader in that team. Would you say that he is the most important signing that United have made, or would you say that Wan-Bissaka and Bruno Fernandes were more crucial?
I think when we look at this situation which we're discussing, I think the culture reboot that Ole wanted to bring in, I think the face of that culture reboot has to be definitely Harry Maguire. Because when we discuss the kind of players that have been brought in, if you actually analyze, United have a lot of players who have the potential to become captains. When you look at Bruno Fernandes, he was captain at Sporting. When you look at Harry Maguire, he was captain. He had those captain abilities at Leicester, and he's certainly been chosen one at Manchester United. You look at Paul Pogba, who's often been touted as a player who has a loud voice in the dressing room. So United are trying to build in a culture where there are a lot of leaders who can guide the young players into becoming great players. So the culture reboot that's going on at Manchester United, I think United have made a fantastic signing in Harry Maguire because of not only his ability on the pitch, but also his contribution to the club off the pitch. I think he has brought in a lot of changes in terms of the dressing room conduct, and he's trying to as the captain of the team, trying to make the team gel and trying to get the whole team together and increase team spirit. So I think his performances on the pitch have obviously been great. I think he's spectacular in the air. I think he has great ability in terms of his defensive presence. I think he's extremely authoritative in the box, and I think De Gea doesn't have to worry much about those attackers coming in, and especially on his side of the pitch. But there are certain factors which will throw him in the bad light as well. There are 2 factors, in my opinion, which affect his image. One is I think De Gea not doing well himself. That puts a lot of negative attention on the defense of the team. And another reason which you rightly pointed out was Lindelof struggling. When there are errors made by the defensive unit, it's the responsibility is taken as a collective unit. So a lot of blame is also put on Harry Maguire. So I think it's extremely important that we put quality players alongside Harry Maguire for him to shine completely on that level, for him to probably come on that level of Van Dijk, because Van Dijk is probably the best centre back in the league right now. And I think credit where due, he's been one of the main reasons why Liverpool have actually are challenging for the title. So when you look at Harry Maguire, does he have a similar impact like Van Dijk did? It would be unfair to say so. I think he's had a very good impact. Obviously, Van Dijk had a sensational impact. Has Harry Maguire had a sensational impact? Probably not. But he's had a very good impact on Manchester United's defense, and I've been extremely happy with his performances this season. I think he's been a successful signing for me.
Yeah, same here. I think he really, it really showed what we were missing last season when we didn't sign him. And it does show that he is an important player for United, because he has made that the defense a lot better and a lot more solid with his presence than without it. I remember watching one of the fan cameras after a game. I can't remember which game it was. It might have been against Crystal Palace. And it was one fan saying that we would have been better off with Chris Smalling than Harry Maguire. And it seems very clear that that's not the case anymore. It showed how much he has improved that defence and how much we did actually sorely miss him last season.
Yeah, because Mourinho wanted him, and I think Mourinho was a big fan of him. But the problem with regards to his transfer not happening last season was, I think, the name was brought up towards the very end of the window.
Yeah.
And to negotiate such a big transfer towards the very end of the window was considered difficult by the club. And that was one of the major reasons why Mourinho was so aggressive and in his transfer, in his press conferences and with regards to transfers, because he was not getting the players that he wanted. But I think it's part blame, to be very honest. A lot of blame has to go on the club, obviously, with regards to not following up. But I think that's where, while we discussed the transfer strategy before, it has changed. We are trying to work on things in a much more efficient manner, to be much more positive with regards to transfers. I think that's why that's why there's a transfer list that has been made well before in advance, so we don't do goof ups like this again. So I think if we have made mistakes with regards to transfers, we have corrected them now. We are working on it. We are still not there yet completely, but it's a step on the right path. And once we go further in that path, we will be challenging for titles. That's for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, how would you, even though he did cost obviously a lot of money, how would you rank him or rate his season so far?
I would say it would be an 8 on 10 for me. He has made a very positive impact on the team, and I think this rating would put him in good light as well for the kind of performances that he's put in. Obviously, as a collective defensive partnership with Lindelof, there is certain level of understanding, but we are not there yet completely. So United, so I think he's had a good season so far. He's had a lot of positive impact. I think he's a good player to have in the team, a player who actually respects the club, loves the club, and knows the culture of the club. So and I think is probably the right man to lead the team. And once that is sorted, once the team has a right winger probably and a few other signings, I think he'll be possibly. I think if during his time at United, I hope he lifts a Premier League title.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't doubt he will. I'm expecting United to be able to make a challenge next season, a much better challenge than the last few. But we will hopefully see a title back at Old Trafford in the next few years. that is obviously our list. We've got Joelinton a 4 out of 10, Tielemans at 7 out of 10, Kovacic 8, Fernandez and Wan-Bissaka 9, and Ndombele 5, Cancelo 4, Rodri 6, Pepe 5, and Maguire an 8 out of 10. And there are top 10. Here are the top 10 most expensive transfers of the Premier League season. Before we finish, there's one question that's interesting, is the fact that Liverpool haven't actually made one of the more expensive signings and are yet far clear of everybody else. What's your opinion on that? What do you think then? Do you think it is just that the team has gelled more over the last few seasons, or was it something? Do you think there's something else at play?
So I think Liverpool, I think recently when I've read about their transfers and, how they function as a club, I think Liverpool are interested in Werner from Leipzig. I think he is someone they're looking at. I think his release clause is that of 50 million euros, but that release clause is likely to drop further down if because of certain performance-based clauses that are there in his contract, or if the or if the league doesn't complete or if the team doesn't complete a certain number of games. I think that is going to make his release clause fall to 40 million. So he is being touted as one of the players who Liverpool are looking at. I think the reason why Liverpool are not thinking of spending big is because the kind of profile of players that are being linked to them. I think Kai Havertz, he's one of the most spoken about midfielders in Europe, and he's done fantastic in Germany in the Bundesliga. I think he's been linked to them but his valuation is then again 100 million. So the kind of players that are being linked to Liverpool, I don't think so they'll be spending huge amounts of money. Like you said, what are they doing behind the scenes? They're trying to get in players who actually fit Klopp's system, and the gegenpressing and the kind of players that they're going for are players who actually would complement the players that are already in the team. So if you look at players like Naby Keita, if you look at Fabinho, these are players who have been actually who have actually high ceilings in terms of potential. I think Keita has not reached that potential yet, but I think Fabinho has done extremely well this season. I think the front three of let's say Mane, Firmino, and Salah, they've done well. I think Mane has been very good this season, absolutely sensational, and so has Salah. But I think Firmino, for me, has not been good, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're looking at Werner, is because they can possibly get in a rotation striker who could help them, probably challenge in Europe again for the Champions League this season. They are obviously an extremely tough team to beat now, because tactically they're an extremely fast counter-attacking team, and they also have a good tendency to keep possession. Because I never expected Henderson to turn out to be the player that he has now, but he's turned out to be a great player for Liverpool, and I think he and Fabinho have turned out to be a great midfield, and that's one of the major reasons why Liverpool like dominating games. When we looked at United versus Liverpool, we all expected that United could possibly be the only team who could actually give Liverpool a fight in terms of taking the game to them. But when we actually had a draw against them at Old Trafford, that was possibly the only games that I thought United played, executed their tactics to perfection. We unfortunately conceded at the last moment, but they actually played well that moment. And I think Watford also played extremely well, where they beat them actually. So there are certain tactics which need to be followed in order to beat Liverpool. I think a lot of managers have struggled to do that this season. That's why Liverpool are so highly placed in the table with so many points. It's sad to see them doing so well, being a United fan. But to bring things to perspective, if we need to challenge them, if other teams need to challenge them, they need to learn how to take the game to them. That's where and possibly stop their fullbacks from exploiting the defenses, because that's where the actual threat is. People often talk about Mane, Firmino, and Salah, but the threat is actually the fullbacks and how fast and effective they are. So once teams learn how to tackle with that, I think Liverpool will probably reduce in terms of their attacking ability.
Yeah, I do agree. I think, I mean, they have obviously shown quality in all parts of the pitch, and I think the fact is they've developed a lot of their players to be world-class players. I mean, we never thought Jordan Henderson would even come close to being a PFA Player of the Season, and here he stands on the precipice of that. We kind of didn't expect Salah to be doing so well after his pretty poor stint at Chelsea. And even then at Roma, he wasn't a world beater, but he just became amazing. And Mane
turned into an Egyptian Messi, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's sort of become like that. He just seems really deadly every time he gets through on goal. Really, I mean, it's scary sometimes, but
it's not against the mighty Wan Bissaka.
Exactly. Yeah. It just obviously they have become brilliant players, and it's not happened overnight. It has taken some time, obviously, which is why it's taken Liverpool so long to mount a successful title challenge over the last 2 years. Well, this one being unsuccessful last season, but potentially successful this season, almost guaranteed so. But there we have it. I mean, it does sort of show sometimes that money doesn't need to buy everything. I mean, obviously they did spend money on Alisson, buckets on Alisson and Van Dijk, but the rest of the team was relatively cheap. Like you said, they look for the hidden gems as such. And so
the Coutinho move to Barcelona basically funded the title, and had Coutinho not moved, they would probably not been as good as they are now. And I just curse Coutinho because he's neither did he do well at Barcelona. Now he's struggling at Bayern. He might as well have stayed at Liverpool, and it could have been a completely different scenario. But what ifs are a big thing in football. So it's unfortunate, but what can we do?
Absolutely, yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we finish?
I would just like to, whoever's listening in, just hope that everything is fine in their own countries. And in terms of the pandemic situation with regards to coronavirus and football, I just wish everyone good health and safety. And with you also, mate, I hope you and your family stay safe. And I just wish everyone good health, and hopefully football comes back soon. And once it's safe, and once it's safe for the players and for everyone involved in the sport, I just wish everyone the best of luck. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, and to you as well. Well, hopefully it is when they do resume football. I mean, obviously the German league will be resuming this weekend, it would seem, and the Premier League will be resuming on the 12th of June. Hopefully that is under safe conditions, and hopefully it will not kind of cause more problems than it solves. But I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Akash for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking football with you, and I hope your podcast does well, and thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure. If you have any questions or any topics you would like for us to cover, then please comment below on the YouTube video or on the Twitter or Facebook post. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for all of our content.